Let's take a break from all these heavy drama stuff and talk about the Book of Mormon. So this show was written and created by Trey Parker and Matt Stone. If you don't know who these guys are, they are the guys who created the cartoon South Park, which I was such a big fan of when it came out. So naturally, when I heard that they created this musical, I had to go and see it. And I first saw this in Chicago. I went with a friend of mine, and there was an actor in the show who at that time wasn't very well known. His name is Ben Platt. And many years later, Ben Platt went on to originate the role of Evan Hansen in Dear Evan Hansen. Good job, Ben Platt. If I were to describe the show, it would be an episode of South Park on stage with real people and characters for 2 hours. That's what would it be. However, what made it really special was the songs. Again, the music, the songs that they wrote for the show are some of the most clever, some of the most creative, some of the smartest songs ever written, in my opinion. The opening song, called Hello, is one of the best songs used to open a musical. It really set the tone for the show and what the show is all about and what you're about to witness for the next 2 hours. I remember it was a little controversial at first when it first came out because people thought that they were making fun of the Mormon religion. But in actuality, it's not. They weren't making fun of anything at all. They were just being funny. It's not for the faint of heart as far as rough language, and if you're easily offended by things like that, this will not be the show for you. But if you want to laugh for 2 straight hours, this one will make you do just that. I was laughing my butt off for 2 straight hours when I was watching this because it was just that funny. Another one that I really liked is Rock of Ages. And this one I saw in Detroit, Michigan, so I had to go see it. One of those what you could classify as a jukebox musical, where it's based off of existing songs, and they use all of those songs to create a show or a story, but somehow it works. And this one used songs from the hair bands of the 80s, and I love the 80s. I love the music that came out of the 80s, no matter how campy they are. They're some of the best songs ever. They're like, you can just rock out to it. So the way they did this was, it was part rock concert, part musical. Because, you know, in a musical, usually it has an orchestra, like a live orchestra. This one used a live band, like a rock band on stage. It really just felt like you were back in 1985 in California, and you walk into this bar late one night, and you know there's a band on stage singing their songs. Everyone's dancing, being drunk. The floors are sticky with beer and spit and sweat. It was very campy, but it really captured the soul of that time period in the show. They used the songs of the gods of the 80s music scene. You know, we had songs from Journey, we had songs from Pat Benatar, we had songs from Whitesnake, Twisted Sister, Bon Jovi. Yeah, they were all there. If you want to get drunk and have fun with your friends, this really captured all of that. Another one that I really enjoyed, this one is a little bit more autobiographical, and it's a story of Carole King, and it's a show called Beautiful, and it was beautiful. It talked about how she started, the songs that she wrote, her personal life, you know, her husband, her kids, her music, her songwriting, her piano playing. And I saw an interview with Carole King once. She said that when the show came out, she actually cannot watch it because, you know, it's about your life, and I don't think they filtered any of it. And her being such a public figure, it's not like there's things that, you know, people didn't know about her husband, her divorce, and all of that stuff. So all of that were in the show, and her to sit to sit down and watch her live on stage. You know, she couldn't bring herself to do it. I mean, I don't blame her. I would probably feel the same way if it was about me and I'm sitting there and a group of people are reliving all these things that happen in my life, both good and bad, painful and happy. But if you're a fan of Carole King and her music, this one really highlighted the beauty of her songwriting and her lyrics and her music, and it tells you how the songs were created. It tells you what she was feeling when she wrote some of the songs that she wrote. This is really good, beautiful. Let me insert something that was just a treat and really fun to watch. And I know a lot of people raised eyebrows when news of this came out, that they were making this show, SpongeBob SquarePants the musical. I am actually one of those who, when I first heard about it, I go, what? They're making a SpongeBob SquarePants musical? How in the hell will they do this? Will they pull this off? And I really had no intentions of watching this when it first came out. I just felt like, I don't know. And I was also one of those people who, when I ended up watching it, felt ashamed and embarrassed that I initially felt that way about this show, because it's one of the best I had ever seen. I remember when I went to the Palace Theater, oh my God, as soon as you walk into that venue, they really decked out the whole place. They made it look like Bikini Bottom. Even the little lights on the side of the walls, they made it look like they were little pineapples. They really did it so creatively, where they kept it really classy, in my opinion, without going too campy or corny or cheesy. And the way they presented the characters, you know, SpongeBob is a square sponge, you know, but in the show, you know, he was presented as a human, and they made him look like SpongeBob SquarePants through the use of costumes, you know, the shirt that he wore, and his mannerisms, the way he acted on stage. His voice sounded like SpongeBob in the cartoons, and every single one of them, every single character, Patrick, Star, I forget the name of the girl, the squirrel, it was just amazing. It was just very creative, very smart, very clever, the way they decided to present it. Well, the story's not the best, yeah, I have to admit. However, you go and watch a show not expecting an award-winning show, which it could very well be, but walk in there without expecting anything, and you will be highly satisfied when you watch it. One thing about SpongeBob though, it's when I saw it in New York, you know, the theaters in New York are a little bit smaller, and I was on the floor level of the theater. There's so many things that happen in the show, and they utilize a lot of the audience and the space where the audience is at, the aisles in between the seats. If you're gonna watch this, I highly recommend to watch it in a more intimate, smaller setting like that, because I saw the show again here in town, and it's a much larger theater. I was in the 4th level of this theater, and there's so many things that I couldn't see that was happening down below, and it felt so different. It did not have the same energy as when I saw it when I was sitting on floor level, and right next to me there's this big giant ball just kind of floating around in the crowd, and it just did not have that same energy if you're too separated, if there's a lot of distance between you and the stage. So I think this show should just be staged in a really smaller, intimate venue. When they released the filmed version of this, I actually got so bored. I was only able to watch about 10 minutes of it because it just did not feel right. I just did not feel the same energy. When you film something, you miss a lot of things that are happening on stage, on the side of the stage, that really makes a lot of difference. So if you're looking to really get entertained, this one's a show for you. And the last one that I want to share is the last show that I saw on Broadway before the pandemic. And this was something that I had been waiting for a while, because one, I'm a big fan of Alanis Morissette, and two, I've read and heard really good things about it. It's called Jagged Little Pill, and it's a musical that used the music and songs of Alanis Morissette. If you're a fan of her, if you're a fan of her music and her songs, this one will really take you back to 1997, 1996, 1995, when her songs were at the top of the charts. Now, onto the story itself. Personally, I wouldn't say that it's the best. However, it talks about a lot of socially relevant issues and topics that are affecting the world today. They tackled and talked about, things that are happening politically. They talked about some of the more intense things, like they talked about some of the more serious things like race relations. They talked about rape. They talked about drug use. They talked about substance abuse. They talked about mental health. They talked about homosexuality. They talked about just all of these really relevant issues that are affecting and confronting us today in society. It's very commendable that this one show decided to tackle these kinds of issues. However, I just felt like it was too much for a 2-hour show, and they weren't able to go deeper into those issues, and it just felt rushed. You talk about this one thing, and then all of a sudden it'll abruptly stop, and then they go on to the next one, they go into the next one, they go into the next one. I just felt like it could have used a little bit more tightening the show as a whole, so it didn't feel like, it was just, okay, we're done with that, let's move on to the next one, let's move on to the next one. That being said, the other side of this, which was the music, was amazing. I've always said that this show really, 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 really just highlighted how talented and how great a songwriter Alanis Morissette was. Her songs used in this manner really gave it a lot of color, a lot of context. Whereas, her songs were great to begin with, but listening to it on the radio, you're just listening to it. Now, put it in a setting where it's a scene and someone was singing it, and then you really see the context behind the song and what the song really meant. It really just paints a totally different picture. Like, you really see that song in a different light. And that was my experience when I was watching Jagged Little Pill, because, her song, You Ought to Know. You Ought to Know was a dark, angry song, right? But why was she writing about it? Why did she write that? What was it about? And you see the same song being sung on stage by somebody else because something happened, and then that was her reaction to that situation. It just totally gave that song a whole new meaning, and that to me was the most magical part of this show. I'm kind of hoping that this break allowed them to kind of tweak the show a little bit and tighten it up just a little bit here and there, so it's not as all over the place as it was. But it's still an amazing show. It's a great show, and it's one of my favorites. Yeah, I really like this one. So there you have it. These are some of the musicals that I have seen the last few years, and these are some of the ones that I've really enjoyed, really liked, and hopefully you get a chance to watch it as well if it comes to where you're at. And as you can see, I am a collector of these things called a playbill. So these are the programs that they hand out in the theater when you watch a show, and you can see them back there as well. I've collected a few over the years, and these are some of my prized possessions. Maybe you've seen some of these shows as well, and if you have, reach out. Feel free to reach out. Let's talk about it. Let's discuss it. Or if you have any questions about any of these shows or any one of those shows back there, if you can see them, yeah, just leave a comment or send me a message and let's talk Broadway. All right, that's it for now. See you in the next one. Bye.